So has somebody given you a DBID number and said, go look it up on Ancestry.com? Oh, maybe that was me. Well, join me now and let's learn how to do that. Well, welcome. This is Mark Lowe, and I'm here with Kentucky Tennessee Research to share with you how to use database ID numbers with Ancestry.com. You know, over the number of years that I've been teaching and sharing information, I found it easier just to share the short database ID numbers with folks as I made presentations and just allow them to jot those down rather than to copy a long URL. Now, it's always advantageous to know that those things might change over time, but currently that still works. And maybe you have gotten a database ID number, or you heard me talk about a resource that you wanted to access, and how do I use that DBID number? Where do I enter that? So let's just learn together. We're going to go to a basic Ancestry startup of where we're just literally logged into the site, just like you would on your home page, and logged into your Ancestry account, or if you're using a library institutional version, then here's the basic home page. And it could look different depending upon the one you're using, but all you have to do to use the DBID is just find anything that you ever have looked up, whether a census record or other information for which you have done a search. The simple thing is, if you're looking at this home page, there's always new records that have been added, and it's always under what's happening at Ancestry. I'm always interested in that, but today I want to show you how to use this. So let's just click on this very first record, which is New York State Passenger and Crew List, and if we just click on that, it's going to open up to the start page there with that database. Now, that may not be the database that I'm interested in, but I want to show you, doesn't matter which database we start in, we're going to look at a database of particular interest that will tie to you. Now let's go back just for a second to our PowerPoint, and let's look at one similar to what I would have shown you. For recently, I was talking about Revolutionary War soldiers from North Carolina, and I mentioned a Ancestry database that is certainly very helpful in regard to those soldiers. You'll notice in the bottom left corner, I've indicated Ancestry.com, but the database is 30057. Now, that's certainly one that would be useful to that. Or it may have been in some other point that I've compared a couple of sites. For example, in this case, the Bounty Land Warrants, 1789 to 1858, are available at Ancestry on database ID 1165. So with those two database ID numbers, we want to learn how to use them. And often in a presentation, I may compare information like I'm doing with this slide. The U.S. Bounty Land Warrants here, and a product by Greg Boyd at Arfax Publishing called HistoryGeo.com. And often I tie those together in a presentation. But for the purposes of this learning video, we're going directly back to Ancestry, just like we were looking. If you remember, we were at the New York State Passenger and Crew List. Let's go to the top of the screen where there is a URL. And it usually starts with something like search.ancestry.com, but it usually ends with DBID equals and a number, in this case 1277. All right, so if we wanted to go look at those bounty land warrants, that was database 1165. Let's just go up to the database ID, and we're just going to delete those, and we're going to type in 1165 and hit enter. Now, if we've typed correctly, we're going to the starting search page of those bounty land warrants that I mentioned in that presentation, database 1165. And from this point, then, you can begin to learn about them. You could browse the particular collection depending on the war, Revolutionary War, the War of 1812. We could actually choose a particular record set or a warrant. And if we had never used these before, I'm going to suggest that you scroll down the page. You look at the source for this information, the reference to the microfilm publications from the National Archives and the Bureau of Land Management that are included, and also more about banning land warrants in particular, the acts, the series of warrants, and what their purposes were. And all of this information is often included within any database that you're going to look at on Ancestry.com. So I would say take the time to learn about them. It also may lead you to other resources that you'll want to follow up. So anytime you go to look at a new one, always take the time to scroll down. And it always tells us often how to use this database. So let's take the time to learn how to do it. Now, in addition to that, we were going to look at another database ID number. So the same thing, if we're on this search page just like this, we can always go back to the home or beginning, but let's just go back to the top where the DBID is. We're going to highlight the change. We're going to enter the new number, which is 30057, and hit enter. And there we are on this search page for those abstract of North Carolina pensions published by Annie Walker Burns several years ago. Again, it's not the database that we're talking about in particular. It's a reference to a collection that Ancestry has made available to you and I through their service. And it's just a way to find a specific reference. Now, we could search for the titles. And if we ever lose it, it's always important that we note the title of any record or source that we use within this database. Well, I'm Mark Lowe, and it's been my pleasure sharing how to use the database ID with Ancestry.com. Come and learn more with me next time. Thanks, and have a great day.